Well, hello, and I'm Lynn Ham. I'm the high school principal at MANILA. You know, the job of a principal is many different things, and so in a lot of ways, you are the manager of the students, the teachers, custodians, and all of your outside staff members, interventionists, and things like that. And so within the job, you have to be sure that you have your skills prepared to be able to manage, lead, mentor, and model to each of those different job assignments. And so it's very, very important if you're thinking about being a principal for a career that you understand the passion that you have to be able to work in education. The job is not an 8 to 3 job. You may start out the morning at 6 o'clock with your first sub calls, and then you may be calling the sub company, or you may be trying to find those sub positions to fill, and then you're going to roll into your morning discipline. Sometimes within the administration position, you may even have to have a CDL license. You may have to get on a bus because we've got to get the students to school. And so your morning could even take a turn, and you could end up at the bus shed, the maintenance shop. I'll never forget a morning one time where we had a flood. And so, you're outside and you're in the water. And so it's one of those positions that you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. If something happens and all the custodians get sick, you may have to clean the building. And so it's a position that entails everything that goes on inside of a school building and making sure that it all gets done. Education is a field that is very important to me. It started young. My brother is actually a teacher and a coach. I got to watch that. We're 10 years apart, and so I got to watch him do that since I was probably in about the 7th grade. And as I started to think about the different fields, I started out a social work major with an emphasis on pre-law. And as I was going through that, I realized that I had a passion for social studies, government, and economics. And so I ended up changing my major early in my junior year to education, and I picked a 7-12 social studies degree program. It was very interesting. I was 20 years old, and I found myself at Marktree High School practice teaching, and it just touched my heart because there's so many different ways that you can help students. So many people see education as just a field that you go into to teach younger students. But the truth is, as students get older, they actually need people that care about them more. You start to deal with a lot of social and emotional relationships, boyfriend and girlfriend, y'all get all of that fun stuff, I'm sure. And so that was my true calling. And as I worked at Marktree High School, they quickly offered me a job, and I got to work in special education for a semester. About March of that semester, I was moved back to the advanced placement social studies classroom. And then in May one day, the superintendent, he came in and he said, I know you want to teach social studies, but I will offer you a contract today if you'll teach family consumer science. And so I went on and I taught family consumer science and fell in love with it that year. And I ended up getting married halfway through my 2nd year there. And my husband had just gotten a position, and so I ended up moving to a different district, and I taught family consumer science again before returning to MANILA, where I taught high school advanced placement social studies, economics, and family and consumer science. And within those jobs was so many different things that caused me to love it even more. I got to work with a program called Operation 2011 that allowed me to work and be sure that every student that entered the 9th grade would graduate. And so we moved that to about a 99% graduation rate. And that was something that I felt like was making a difference. And that's what education's about. If you're planning on going into education, it's about a lot more than just teaching. It's the impact that you're going to have on other people's lives. And so I spent about 8 years in the classroom teaching. And each year I had to have more and more. I wanted to be more involved in more activities, more involved in making a difference. And so I was pretty young. I had held a master's degree in K-12 curriculum since I was about 22 years old, and I had not used that. And so when I was 28 years old, the superintendent at the time came to me in June, and she told me I was going to be moving jobs. I cried because I loved the classroom, and I was a little bit scared to go to a 5-8 school. And she said, well, if you're worried about that, you can go to a K-8 school. And so I quickly realized that I should probably stop while I was ahead. But what happened when I went and started working in that 5-8 school is I realized the impact that you can have as an administrator and the impact we can have on all of the students. And so what I encourage you as you look at fields, look at what you truly love to do. What do you really want to be doing? And be sure that you love what you're doing. And that's what's so special about education is so many people will tell you, don't major in education, but education is what let me fly on the plane for the first time, allowed me to travel to some places that I had never been as a young adult. It allowed me to develop the leadership skills that I would need to one day find the career that I really believe that I am called to do. Education is the building block of how we're going to get to where we really want to go. When I was 17 years old, I lost an $85,000 scholarship because we were not Pell Grant eligible in my home. And so I was sitting in an auditorium in May when a lady from Arkansas Northeastern College, it was MCCC at the time, offered me a full paid tuition, books, everything you could imagine scholarship. And so I was very blessed to get to go to our local college here in Mississippi County for a year, in which I received an associate's degree in arts, and it's Associates of Arts. So I had those 2 basic years under my belt, debt-free. I was able to pick up an ACT scholarship to Arkansas State University, where I received a Bachelor's of Science and Education degree in Social Studies. After I left, I realized that maybe I didn't have all of the building blocks that I needed to be the type teacher that I wanted my students to have at Montgomery High School. So my brother called me one day and he said, hey, I signed you up for grad school. He was 31 at the time and I was 21, and I said, I can't afford grad school, I just got married. And lo and behold, I started grad school that summer, and 14 months later I had a K-12 curriculum degree. And I was just excited because at the time it was a $3,000 raise in education. And so for a number of years, I just sat on that until I was about 28 years old. And I realized that I wanted to be an administrator. And so I added a specialist degree in K-12 administration. And as I worked in administration, I realized that one day I would like to actually be the teacher of those administrators, or I would like to be able to make an impact in Little Rock, to impact our schools. I would really like to make a change in what we're doing. And so at that point, I had to make a really big choice. I had to decide if I was going to add a doctorate degree, where would I get that doctorate degree? And so I looked at a number of places, and at that time, Ole Miss, you would have to pay out-of-state tuition, and so it was a little expensive. And I looked at a number of places, but I went back to that school that I had lost that $85,000 scholarship to, Harding University. And when I first interviewed for the doc program at Harding, I really didn't know if I would get in. They only take 12 candidates. And I got the letter in January that said, welcome to the doctoral program at Harding University. And so what I'll tell you about that is it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I started the program in August, and COVID hit in February. And so there was a few times that I asked, could I take a sabbatical? Could I just put a pause for a year? Because in the same process, I was moved to a new job. I had moved from a 5-8 principal to a 7-12 principal in the same district. So I asked, and I'll never forget my professor, her name's Dr. Flowers, saying, Leanne, just come to class and we'll get it figured out. And the beauty of all of that was we finished out that program, and somehow I managed to write a dissertation during COVID, and in December of 2021, I will be Dr. Lynn Helms. I actually got my credentials in September of being Dr. Helms, but I will actually get my certified degree on December the 18th. And so what I tell you is education is the building blocks. When I added that doctoral, that will not change my pay. That will not change anything I do in this job. But in the future, as I look to advocate for education, that doctoral degree will help me be more powerful. It's also something that, I have a dream one day of teaching in Mississippi County. So I would have the chance, if I wanted to go to Arkansas Northeastern College and teach, that would help me to build my resume to maybe be able to compete with the other candidates for a teaching position at the college level. Hiring is probably one of the most important things that you will do as a principal. You want to be sure that when you're hiring, you get the right people for your team. You got to look at the personalities of everyone in your building or your workforce in which you're working. And so when I interview someone, I'm looking to see, did that person do a little bit of investigating? Do they know a little bit about the position they're applying? Did they read through any of the employee handbooks? Did they clean up their social media? Oh, we might not want to talk about that. Just remember, does everything we put on social media disappear? Because one of the first things that's going to happen when hiring is I'm going to type your name in and I'm going to see what shows up on the public side of a social media account. And so if you're applying for an education job and the dress you have on is limited and you may be holding something that's illegal at your age or any of those things, that could hurt you in getting a position in a professional job. Here at MANILA, one of the things about our team is that we're a family. And so we're looking to hire those people that are going to bleed black and gold at the end of the day. They're going to stay as long as needed to do what's best for every student here in our district. I'll never forget during COVID, we loaded a lot of buses and passed out a lot of meals. And I never remember anyone saying, well, I was hired to teach, not get on a bus or drive a bus or pack lunches. When you take a job in education, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. And you never know what's going to change. We didn't know that education would change when COVID hit. We didn't know that Sunday afternoon that we would not go back to school until August. And so one of the most important things that you need to understand when you select or you start to select education is that you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. But also, at any age, you need to be preparing to be hireable. You need to be sure that you're watching what you put on those social media accounts, because whether it's a scholarship you're applying for now or it's a job you hope to have later, those are things that you never know what people are watching at any time. So please think about that. And I would just warn you again, please watch your social media accounts, because that's something that really does come into the hiring process. If you're considering education, you need to start now. Education is a field that you can start very early. You could start preparing to be a teacher, a paraprofessional, anything within the school district as young as 7th or 8th grade. Things to consider is I think it's very important when you're filling out, surely if you're going to go through a traditional teacher's education program, is go on and get your parapro license. Take that parapro test or get those first 2 years and apply for a parapro license. I always thinking about people applying to the teacher education program. I think about if I was sitting on that committee and someone already had a parapro license, that I feel like they're building the building blocks to be the best possible teacher. Also think about subbing, shadowing. If you're younger and you can shadow a teacher, maybe be a teacher intern while you're still in high school, I think that is an excellent thing to do, because preparing for education is very important. Education is something you've got to have a mindset. What are you going to do if you decide to become a teacher when the door's shut and you're in there with 25 to 30 students and you're by yourself? What is your plan? I remember many days having to go back and form a new plan because the first plan did not work. The first set of classroom rules were not very good. And so it's one of those fields that can never be too early. Watch people, the teachers that you think are good teachers. What are they doing different from some of the teachers that may be a little bit weaker in your eye? So it's all about planning. What would you like to be, or who would you like to be if you worked in the educational setting? And then if you're thinking, well, Ms. Helms, I don't know that I want to be a teacher. I think I want to be an administrator. Well, to be an administrator, you have to have 3 years of teaching. I'll never forget when my little girl was little, she told her kindergarten teacher, maybe her first grade teacher, she said, I'm praying that my mom becomes a teacher and not a principal. Well, the truth of it is you have to be a teacher before you can be a principal, and you will need that background knowledge. I use my teaching career and my teaching knowledge every day when I sit in an administrative seat. And so keep that in mind as you're building. You're never too young to start learning how to teach and to be a successful teacher. Arkansas Northeastern College has played a major role in my life. I graduated on a Monday night from MANILA High School, and on that Friday night, a really good friend of mine was killed in a car wreck. That Monday, I had to go in and see my advisor at ANC. I was going to take classes with a friend that had been killed. And I'll never forget that my academic advisor, she kind of took me under her wing, and she made sure I had my summer school courses set up just right. And while I was there that next year and a half, she took care of me. And the relationships that you can form at Arkansas Northeastern College is so different. I was looking for a job one day while taking classes at ANC, and met a lady in the University Center named Patsy Smith. And so Patsy Smith helped me to have a job while I was at ANC, and I actually kept that job pretty much up until I became a teacher. And she talked to me about being a social studies teacher, and she was my mentor. And I would have things as I got ready to transfer happen, like there was a lady in one of the offices and she didn't really know how to help me, and she told me that I had lost my ASU transfer scholarship because of the scholarship I had taken at ANC. And I remember going over to Miss Smith and I was like, I've messed up. I should have taken my ACT scholarship. And I'll never forget her taking me over, and I met a lady named June Walters. And Miss June, she said, oh no, that's not right. And she wrote a personal letter to Arkansas State University telling them about the scholarship I accepted and that it was based on an ACT score. And I guess that's what's so special about ANC, is the personal relationships. When you walk into ANC, you're going to be greeted with a smile. You're still going to be a name and not your social security number or your student ID. They're going to check on you. If you miss a few days of classes, you're going to get an email. And I think that's what makes it so special, is it's that perfect transition from high school that gives you that building block of confidence that you're going to need when you walk on to a 4-year university. And that's what ANC has done in my life, is it gave me that confidence. It helped that small town girl be prepared to take on life. And I had been blessed by ANC in so many ways, but then when I came back to MANILA to work, I got to see my students be blessed by ANC, by all of the things that they can take part with at the University Center. I mean, I have students that can get certifications and make a lot more money than I do as a principal by finishing one of those programs. I have students that can finish an associate's degree before they ever walk out of high school. And just all of the opportunities that we have right here in Mississippi County just amaze me, and it makes me so proud to be a graduate of A&C and to be a part of where they're going next. And so I just encourage you to always give A&C a second chance, a second look, because it may just be the perfect place for you those first 2 years.